I'll go ahead and get started. My name is Brian Matson. I'm with Digital Control. I'm out of the Midwest area. I'm out of the Chicago region. I cover Vermeer Midwest and Vermeer, Wisconsin for the two dealers that I cover. TCI has got 9 people out in the field. We've got pretty much the whole United States covered. We've got 9 people spread out through the whole United States. So if you've got questions in New York, questions in Arizona, we could definitely answer those questions for you, or in Canada, wherever it might be. These are some of the contacts for Vermeer Midwest Group, the Indiana office. Paul is the specialist there in Indiana. Central Illinois, it's CJ Cool. Chicago area, it's Brett. He covers basically from Interstate 80 north Chicago area. Michigan, you got Rob Postman, and he's out of Michigan. He covers all of Michigan. Missouri and Southern Illinois, which would be Doug Hicks. He covers the Southern Illinois and greater St. Louis area. And then myself, Brian Matson. And we also have Rick Johnson on the phone and Joshua Spray also. Today we're going to kind of do a 101 locating. I'm going to talk more about Falcon technology, more about locating 101. So we're not going to get too deep into locating, because I'm not going to train you how to locate. Basically, it's going to be the overview. I'm going to go back and forth a little bit from Falcon technology, which has been out for quite a few years now. I'm also going to talk a little bit about the old classic and some of the older systems as well. But here we go. So these are the items that I want to talk about. We're going to, scan, pick, pair, walking a bore path. I know a lot of people don't walk the bore path right now. They show up to the job site and they basically figure out where they got to go, and they do the job. With the Falcon technology, we're able to now pick different frequencies, and we're going to get into the frequencies in more into these slides. But walking the bore path is kind of critical on certain jobs. When you have a long job or a hard job in a city area where you have a lot of background noise, we really recommend walking the bore path to see what problems may come out. And then also calibration. We'll talk a little about calibrating, talk a little bit about batteries and transmitters, and then understanding how the signal works from digital control, how our signal from our transmitter works up to the locator. The first slide here is basically what a locator. This is all of our locators. Doesn't matter if it's a Falcon or a classic F5 or a classic F2 or an SE. These are the screen that you see. The first thing that came up is transmitter roll orientation, which is basically clock position. So you're all familiar with the clock position, what it does. The second one is roll pitch meter. The roll pitch meter is the little green bars that are there and how much signal strength that you have going out to the roll pitch meter. The next one is the pitch. So whether you're running, this one is running 0.03 down, negative. The next one is signal strength. Signal strength is another way we calibrate the way we generate our depth readings. Signal strength, basically for signal strength at 700 points is around 10 foot away on a Falcon transmitter. The next one down is 42 PSI. That's the fluid pressure transmitters. That's only available on the Falcon F5. And the next one is the temperature of the sonde itself. So this tells you how hot the sonde is. This will beep at you every 4 degrees. So if it beeps both at the Aurora or the remote screen, it also beeps at the locator, the handheld receiver. So if you've got a sonde that goes from 68 degrees to 110, your water's probably not on. You better stop and figure out why your temperature is rising so fast, because the sondes burn up at 220 degrees. You still got a long ways to go, but once the heat starts to generate, it goes pretty quickly. And then the ball for locating. The ball in the box, that's what our DCI is known for, is how simple it is and how easy it is to put the ball in the box for either the front locate or the rear locate. Frequency optimization. Why we do this? Well, we haven't done it for so many years because people just go out to the job and they pick which one they want to do, and they had an option of either 12 kilohertz or 19 kilohertz for the most part, and that's all they had to work with. If it didn't work, they had to figure out a different method. Well, now we have the scan, pick, pair, which is on the Falcon technology, which gives us almost, let's just give roughly around 1,000 frequencies. So instead of having 12 kilohertz or 19 kilohertz, we can pick anywhere from 0.03 kilohertz all the way up to 45 kilohertz. So we've got a lot more ability to pick the frequencies at the job site. If you're on the same job day in and day out on the same block, do you need to do this? No, you don't have to do this. But when you're on a new job, a new bore path or a critical bore path, definitely it makes sense to walk the bore path. This is what walking the bore path. This is what we're showing here is on the left-hand side, you got the Falcon, which is right now we're optimizing. We're looking for the best signal strength. We're looking for how much noise is there, how much background noise. On the right is the Classic or the F2s or SE systems. What we're looking for in the Classic is the signal strength. Typically, when we're above 150 points of signal strength, we may start having problems. And right now, the sound is in this picture. It's actually loaded, so that's why we're having the pitch and the roll. But if you were walking the job site with no sound lit up, you would see signal strength. It would be minus 20, minus 30, could be 10, 15. Once you hit about 150 points of signal strength, that means there's a lot of background noise. That means that particular point walking the job, you may have a tough time locating or getting the ball to stay in the box. With the Falcon technology, it's doing that for you. We're actually scanning all these 9 different bands, and we're looking for the best band inside that area. Now, if you look down here on the bottom, 0.03 kilohertz all the way to 16 kilohertz is our rebar transmitter. That's one specific transmitter that we use just for rebar situations. If you've got to use it for other things, you can put it in band 16 and it works just fine. But if you want a standard wideband transmitter, that goes from band 7 to band 43. So that one has a little bit more, it has a little bit more wider screen, and also goes to 100-foot depth. The rebar transmitters are good to around 50 feet, depending on what band that you're in. Walking the bore path, you see all the utility lines above there. Those things could be problems, so it's really nice to walk the bore path and take a few notes as you're walking it. And when you walk the bore path, find out where areas that are bad. Now, the nice thing with the Falcon technology is if I get an area, I've walked a 500-foot bore, and if I get out 350 feet and I have a problem that it's really, really loud right there, I can rescan it at that particular point and rescan that bad spot and figure out what frequency might be best. Because walking the whole 500 feet, I've got the whole picture of it. But now that really bad spot, if I walk that real short little area, I can figure out what band might be best at that spot. What we're going to do now is we're going to look at the Falcon locator. And if you notice the screen here, the box that's around there, that's the optimization screen. So what we're going to do is there's 3 boxes here. My screen is covered up with pictures here. Let me just close this out. Okay, so what we're looking at here is the box that's circled is the optimization screen, which is also the screen below you. That's the optimization screen. The next to this is the sonde that's picking the right transmitter. So if you have an F5 or an F2, or if you have a duct track or something else, or a rebar transmitter, this is where you pick the right transmitter for the locator that you're working with. The icon on the very far right with a little eye for information, that's the information screen. That will help me tell how the transmitter is running, how many hours are on it, tells me the temperature of it, the high temperature, tells me the up band, the down band. It's a really good thing to use. Now, if you're using lithium batteries, depending on which kind you're using, there's different qualities of the batteries, but if you're using one of the DCI lithium batteries, those are military grade batteries and they go to about 70 hours. So if I've got 300 hours on my transmitter, I know I can probably get close to 370 hours before that battery is bad. That's one way to tell how many hours are on transmitters. And then on the bottom screen is the 2 items here, 29 and 11. Those are 2 of the frequencies that we picked previously. So if I was on a bore yesterday and I did a bore and I'm on a bore today, I could go with 29 or 11. I don't have to go with 29 and 11. I can see how the rest of them look If I like what 29 and 11 look like, I can stick to those two, or I can pick two brand new ones. The picture that we're showing, we still have 11 and 29 picked, but it looks like 16 and 25 might be a better band. So we could switch it. So if we do switch it, we'd have to recalibrate. Okay, so what we're looking for in the bands, we're looking for the lowest noise. We're looking for the lower the bars, the better it is. If you're up in the minus 36, minus 18, up close to the zero, that means there's a lot of interference. So you can pick and choose your different bands that you want. This slide here, 2911, or what we had picked before, we still have those two picked, but they're starting to pick a new band. They're picking band 29, and they're going to, this one will, when you pick it twice, it's going to highlight this one here, and then it turns green. When you pick two brand new bands, these items will both be green and not red. So right now they've only picked one band. They haven't picked the second band. So batteries, as I said, batteries, there's a lot of different, that's probably our #1 phone call that DCI receives is batteries, especially in the January, February, where it's colder months, because batteries are definitely subjected to cold weather. So I would not recommend putting them in the freezer. But the DCI batteries are lithium batteries. They're military grade batteries. So if you bought a dozen of them and put them into a climate controlled closet or something that's a climate control, those batteries will last up to 10 years on the shelf life if you don't use them. Once they're put into a sonde and they're running, they last up to about 70 hours, depending on the weather. If the weather is cold, if you're up in Wisconsin, or if you're up in northern Michigan in January where it's 0 degrees out, that battery may not last 70 hours. It may only last 60 hours, depending on how the temperature is. If you're going to use any other batteries, any other lithiums, they're fine. Just realize that they should read at least 3.4 to 3.5 volts. And you can do that by going back to the information screen and pairing that to the information screen. And that'll tell you how many volts that battery is. Energizers, if you're going to use standard C-cell batteries, I recommend the Energizer batteries. They typically will last if you're just standard boring. You're going out 5 days a week, you're doing short bores, 200-300 foot shots. Energizers are fine. They work really well. They last quite a while. I've got some people, they can get up to 40 hours on a set of batteries, depending on how rocky or how chunky the ground is. The rockier and the chunkier ground batteries, when they start to chatter, they definitely don't last as long. If you're not getting the shrink wrap batteries, I really recommend getting that little spacer between the two batteries. The spacer will help you keep the battery from chattering inside the housing. Now, your battery should fit snugly into the sonde, and also the sonde should fit snugly into the housing. If the sonde housing is really loose, you want to make sure you put some tape on the sonde, so it's not shaking around inside the housing. It should be tight. Pairing both bands. Now we've got the batteries. We've already picked up two brand new bands. Now we're ready to start pairing. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the batteries in the sonde. Now, some people put them in from the top down or from the bottom up. It doesn't really matter. You can go either direction. Right now, the screen that we're showing is this was a rebar transmitter. We're going to we're pairing band 0.07 and 7. So we're in the upper right hand corner, you're going to see 7.7. That's what the rebar transmitter is going to be paired at. So we're pairing that. So now we've loaded the sonde batteries in, and we're ready to start pairing. So if you do tape up your sonde, tape everything up except the area where the IR port is. Leave that area up. Don't tape that. If you tape that with black tape, it will not pair. So go ahead and tape it up and keep it nice and clean, and then go ahead and match up the IR port from the sonde to the locator, and go ahead and pair it. Once it's paired, you're going to have to calibrate. Calibration is done 10 feet, 120 inches. What we do is we go from the center of the housing to the side of the F5. Once you calibrate, if I calibrate at 9 feet, it's going to come up with a green check mark saying it's successful. I've basically told the sonde that it's 10 feet. So I'm off by 1 foot. So when we calibrate, we want to make sure we do 120 inches or 10 feet and check it. So if you're drilling at 5 feet, come back in and look at what 7 feet is. Come back in and look what 5 feet is, because what you're looking for is a signal strength. 738 points is what this particular sonde, and this comes out at 10 feet. So that's what my pairing is. Typically, a Falcon transmitter is right around 700, 710 signal strength. So let's say that I'm drilling along and I can't get a depth reading. Well, if I know my signal strength is about 700 points, I know I'm pretty close to 10 feet deep. What we're looking here is the triangle. The triangle means that we're not calibrated. So if you have a triangle on either one of those bands, that means you haven't taken the time to calibrate both bands. And a lot of guys will take the shortcut, they'll only do one of them, but if you ever have to switch bands down hole, it's not a good idea. You want to make sure you calibrate both bands when you pair it. Calibration. What we do is go into calibration screen. It's asking you, it's not telling you, it's asking you to go from the side of the box to the center of the housing. Typically, I like to have the housing laying in the grass. I don't want it laying on a sidewalk where there's rebar. I don't want it laying in the street. I definitely don't want it laying next to a running truck or a fence, any metal objects. You're better off using, putting in the grass area, getting a good clean calibration. And what you want to do is, go ahead and calibrate it. Try to have the sonde as level as you can be. You don't have to put a level on to see if it's level. You don't have to check it to make it level, but as long as it's less than 10%, you're in good shape. You can go ahead and calibrate. You don't want to calibrate on the drill at a 17 or 27% down, because your calibration will be really off by that. When you calibrate, it should be 10 foot. It shouldn't be 10 foot 7. It shouldn't be 10 foot 3. It should be right on the money. So if it doesn't say 10 foot or 10 foot 1, you need to redo the calibration to start over. Again, triangle means that we're not calibrated on one of the bands. So you've got your up band and your down band. So you got to make sure you calibrate both bands. And to do that, there's a couple ways to do that. You can actually take the batteries out. I've got a couple slides showing that, so I'll get into that in a minute. But you want to make sure if you have a triangle that you go ahead and calibrate both bands, because it's real critical that you do both bands once you're pairing it, because your sonde's out of your housing. It's really easy to do it that way. So changing bands on the locator to see what other bands are there. If you toggle the F5, toggle it over to the right, hold it for about 1.5 seconds, and this screen comes up. And the screen showing me on the left-hand side, it's showing me we have band 7 and we have band 29. We've got band 29 selected, so we are in this band right now. If I wanted to choose the other band, I could go ahead and move this X, check it, move it up here, click the button, and then go back and enter it, and now it would be in band 7. Right now, it shows that we're in band 29, and we are in band 29, so that's everything correct on here. This little 1 up here is your remote display. So we're in channel 1 for channel 1 for our remote display. The check mark here means that we have a fluid pressure transmitter. So this is a transmitter that's putting out fluid pressure. So we have it checked because we want the readings from the fluid pressure. There's 2 ways to switch the downhole. We can switch above ground or below ground, switching the different bands. And the way this is kind of the way we do it. We've got these 2 options. I'm going to go through it here on the next slide. We can change the batteries out. Changing the batteries is simple to do. If you put the batteries in from the top and drop the batteries down, or if you put the batteries in from the bottom and push the cap up, those are the different ways of changing the bands. If you don't like that particular way, because the cap is hard to get on from the bottom, another way you can do it is you can do the tilting method. The tilting method, about 65 degrees, you can do this either the sonde by itself or the sonde in the housing. So if the sonde was in the housing, you basically pick up the duckbill, hold the clock at one particular part, hold it at 12 o'clock, and hold it up in the air. And what you're going to do is you're going to hold it to a count to about 15. Once you count to 15, then lower it back down, and it'll switch bands on you. Everything will go away. So it's a pretty simple way to do it. You can do it in your with your hands or in the housing. And either way, It's one way to switch it. So the other method is if you have an Aurora remote display, it's very, very simple. The Aurora is on the drill, but if you don't have an Aurora, you can do the 10-2-7 method. Basically, you're going to roll it around, lower your RPMs of your drill, get it onto a slower rate, rotate around a couple times, stop it at 10 o'clock, and then count for 15 seconds. And then once 15 seconds hits, go to 2 o'clock. Again, hold it for 15 seconds, and then switch it to 7 o'clock and hold it for 15 seconds. And after you've done that, it should switch bands and the screen should disappear on the locator and go into the other band. So that's transmitters. The transmitters, they all work the same, whether it's a Falcon or a Classic. They basically, it's a dipole field. The signal comes out in this big loop style, and it depends on which way this one is drilling flat. So we have 3 points on the line, on the bore path. We have the front locate, the rear locate, and then the line locate is directly over the head. This is where our transmitters work. Let's see if I can play a little video. So you got your signal, which is the front locate, and then the rear locate on the left, and the line locate over the head. Now, if you're drilling at an angle, this is how the angle comes up. And the deeper you go, the more farther apart those balls will get. The shallower you are, the closer those balls are. So if you're running at 15 feet deep versus 3 feet deep, those balls will be really close to each other. This is a good way to be able to find it. So if the line does not pop up on your locator right away, maybe you changed out the bentonite tank and your line does not pop up right away on your locator. What you do is find the front ball or the rear ball, put the ball in the box and squeeze the trigger. And once you squeeze the trigger, it'll tell the locator and the transmitter, hey, where are you? And then the line will pop up every time. Again, these are some of the guys that we've got around for Vermeer Midwest. We've got, offices scattered throughout the Midwest. If you have any questions and you can't get a hold of DCI, we're basically 24/7. We've got somebody on call if you want to call our 800 number. If you can't get a hold of any of the Vermeer specialists for Vermeer Midwest, feel free to call myself, call our 800 number, or call any of the Vermeer guys, because we're pretty much available 24/7.
Hey, Brian, what is that 800 number? I'll put that in the chat so anybody can copy that down.
288-3610.
Sorry, what was it?
288-3610. I believe that's correct. Is that right, Rick?
Oh, he's probably muted.
I think it's 288-3610. It's on all our locators too. So I mean, all the numbers are on the locators or on the remote.
Awesome. Great. Yep. There we go. Thanks, Rick. For the
and then, we got a little competition. Kelsey, you want to describe this one?
Sure. Yeah. So we've got a little promotion going on with our drill fluids. So from now through May 15th, we've got one golden ticket hidden in a case of drill fluids at every location. So all 10, you have a chance to win. So you can purchase any of your drill fluids now, and you'll get a big cooler, and it's going to be filled with a bunch of swag from our vendors, as well as some Vermeer Midwest gear. So you might find yourself getting a little Richardson hat too, if you're lucky.
Or a DCI hat.
Yeah, exactly. We got DCI stuff too.
Was there any questions today, Kelsey?
One, there's not any on the chat, but one that I thought about is what kind of apps do you have, like on the phone, to connect to like DCI information?
DCI has a couple apps right now. We're currently developing a few more, but right now we have the first one would be a DigiGuide. The DigiGuide is kind of a 101, a quick start guide for all of our locators, whether it's an F1, F2, or an F5. And it's basically the common questions that we get. And it talks about transmitters. It talks about just the common questions that come up every day for the locators that we get. So it's a free app for Android or Apple phones. There's no, it's inside the, you can just download the app and you can look at it as much as you want. You can ask questions on there, I believe, as well. And also we have LWD app, which is for the Falcon F5. And the Falcon F5, you can actually upload the jobs to your phone, and you can then look at them on there. And if you decide that that's pretty cool and you like it, you can actually purchase a subscription for sending the job from your phone to your office or from your phone to whoever it might be. But that's another free app.
Awesome. That's great. I just put the links in the chat for those in case anybody's looking for links to those apps. What was one other? How about why does my transmitter shut off whenever I put the door on the housing?
That's one of the most common questions we get, especially with the colder months, the winter months. The reason for that is typically people are using the batteries that are lithium batteries that are the knockoff batteries, or they're more inexpensive, and they range anywhere from $25 to $70 batteries, but they're not bad batteries, except there's no quality control. So you can buy a box of 10, and a box of 10, 2 of the batteries may not even fire up. And what you're looking for is voltage. So if the voltage goes 3.2, 3.1 volts, when you put the door on the housing, the sonde has to work. The sonde has to work to get the signal outside the housing. And what happens is when it's low voltage, the sonde shuts down and it shuts off. So that means the voltage on that battery is bad. So that's a good reason why we want to scan the batteries ahead of time to find out if it's a good battery or a bad battery, because they all read full power, and then they die. And they always die when you're only 20 feet from the exit pit.
Of course. Awesome. Well, thanks. Sean Tippy just asked, in the future, do we have any additional online classes planned? So yes, Vermeer Midwest definitely does. We're looking into other classes with Vermeer programs or projects, sorry, and we're always open to any other locating classes as well. So we'd love to get your feedback. So you can always email me. I was the one that sent you the link. So if you have any ideas for classes, just shoot them my way. You can respond right back to me. We got one other question. Where can I find a manual for an SE?
SE, a manual for SEs. I think they're still online. If you go to digitrack.com, go to our website. If you go into legacy equipment, I believe there's an icon for legacy equipment. There should be an icon for downloading an SE map. You can download the map or download the SE manual, and it comes in a couple different languages too. So it should be all available online. If you're having troubles finding it where it's online, just get a hold of me and we can send you a link to it.
I think I found it. It's under the legacy products. So you guys can use that link to hopefully look at that. There's a bunch of different models on there as well. Thanks, Josh. All right. Well, we don't have too many other questions, but again, if you guys have questions, please feel free to email me. My email is kelsey.cool@vermeermidwest.com. And again, you can always reach out to any of your drill specialists. You can always reach out to Brian. We are here to help you stay up and running through these crazy times, but we appreciate you guys joining in, and hopefully we'll see you again next Friday at the same time.